we went live because then, oh, good. See, thank you for waiting.
Always, absolutely. Welcome everyone to the Unready room. I'm Dan Gunther. With me, of course, is Brandi Jackola, and we've got some anomalous readings that we're going to be talking about in this week's Unready room. So, Brandi, how's it going today?
I have a bit of a cold, so I sound a
Hmm,
little weird, but I am here and I am excited to talk about this episode with you and everybody in the chat.
absolutely, yeah, I'm excited too. So yeah, welcome to everyone live with us in the chat, and of course to everyone who will be joining us on the rebroadcast, the delay, whatever. Joining us later, not live. Welcome and thank you so much for watching. Yeah, here we go. We're 2 episodes in on Discovery's 4th season now, and I continue to echo what I said last week. These folks have just found their voice as far as a TV show, like not even just Star Trek, just a TV show that like these people are just comfortable inhabiting their characters. I really, really love seeing them come together like this.
I agree, and they're comfortable in their uniforms because
Mm-hmm.
everybody on the cast is talking about how much more comfortable these uniforms are than the original disco uniforms.
Yeah. Oh man. And I have to say, because I mentioned last week, this week Stamets looks so much more comfortable in his uniform. He seemed to wear it very naturally this time around. So yeah, maybe unstarched his collar a bit or something, but he seems a little bit more at ease
Yeah,
physically,
well,
I have to say.
yeah, yeah. Well, again, I think that it was just all down to body language more than anything else. So,
Mhm.
he was just, Anthony was just acting all tense and it showed in his shoulders.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so well, let's jump right in. First of all, I want to say the teaser for this episode was like extra long. And I remember watching it and making that comment, and it was still just about halfway through the whole teaser, because we've got Book dealing with the fallout from the end of last week's episode, obviously. We've got Saru returning to Discovery and taking the role as first officer, a meeting at Starfleet headquarters to discuss the threat, Discovery being sent to the coordinates, and then getting there and seeing the anomaly. And that's all before the opening credits. And I was like, wow, this is going to be a very packed episode.
Yes, yes, indeed. And it is a very packed episode. In fact, when I was remembering this from after having watched the screeners, I'm like, was that episode 2 or 3? Because it seemed like the events of it were long enough for 2 episodes, but it was all just one.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me cry a lot.
Yeah, and understandably, Bruce and I just finished recording our Positively Trek episode, and this was an emotional one. It went to some places, and I feel like it's a harbinger of the rest of the season to come, because there's going to be some heavy stuff, and there certainly is in this episode. Starting, of course, with Book and what we learned right at the end of last week's episode. His home planet is gone, and the people he loved seem to be gone as well. And um, he's not okay. And I don't
Why
think
would he be
anybody, and I
okay?
don't think anybody would be okay whatsoever. I sure as heck wouldn't be. I think he's handling it a lot better than I would. So, yeah, thoughts on Book?
I think he's not handling it at all.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. It's like Michael said, he's not talking, he hasn't even cried. And Saru, oh, welcome back, Saru. Welcome back, Saru. I
Welcome
cried when
back.
she went into her ready room and it was him in there, and I'm like, yes, thank you. I was thinking it was going to take a few more episodes, so I was so happy. That's first cry. And he does say everyone has to sit with grief in their own way, and that is absolutely true. You cannot, um, you cannot tell anybody how to grieve, how long it takes, how to express their grief. You can't do that. It is different for every single person, and you have to let them figure out that process. And therapy is a good way to do that, because a good
Mhm.
therapist will guide you without telling you what to do. They will help you figure out what it is you already know in your brain but can't really put into words yet. You can't really make it a conscious thought yet.
Mhm.
Therapy is great for that.
Yeah. Um, yeah, let's just jump around this episode because I have some thoughts on that in particular, when it comes to Tilly specifically, because it's obvious from last week's episode, and of course this week's episode, she's dealing with a lot. And my my name, I did have to laugh when she said she was totally stammeting. Um, I love that being verbed like that. I thought that was terrific. So, yeah, Tilly is snapping at Adira and not acting herself really because of the stress and the strain and the trauma she's gone through. And I love that scene where she talks to Culber and says, I want to talk to you like in a professional capacity about all of this because um, it's funny. We were watching it and she said that, and my wife Nikki said, "Oh, that's so hard to do," and then just immediately after that, she said, "Oh, it's not hard. It's not hard to say, but it's." And I was just like, "That was weird. They're listening to us." Um, but yeah, like that can be a difficult and, as Tilly says, awkward thing to do. And I feel like so many of us watching this, we've just gone through a year and a half plus, longer than a year and a half now, of alternating lockdowns and uncertainty, coronavirus worries, new variants, vaccinated, unvaccinated, all this stuff we hear day in and day out. And it just makes for a really uncertain, really unsteady feeling about the future and stuff. And so many of us are hurting, and so many of us can't put into words why we're feeling what we're feeling. And I know I myself, I brush it off a lot. I go like, oh, I just snapped at somebody, but I'm being silly, I'm being ridiculous, I just need to get over it, blah blah blah. And no, like sometimes we need to talk and we need to get to the bottom of this and realize that we're humans and we're complicated and not everything is just cut and dry. And I don't know. I loved that scene that Tilly had that realization and that she needed to do this. And I'm rambling now, but that scene meant so much to me.
Now, it meant a lot to me too, as someone who has been through therapy more than once in her life. And I am a huge proponent of therapy, and there is nothing to be ashamed of. Yeah, I've said it many times. You go to the doctor when your body is sick. You also need to go to a doctor when your mind isn't working right.
Mm-hmm.
To think that those things are always going to function at 100% all the time. I mean, it's obvious that our bodies are never going to function at 100% of the time like they're supposed to. We accept that, but we can't yet accept that about our minds. I don't know where the divide is in that. I don't know why there's still such a stigma to that. Let's get rid of that. Let's just
Mm-hmm.
collectively as a group agree to not do that anymore, because you wouldn't tell someone with cancer to just get over it. So don't say that to someone who is going through mental
Mm-hmm.
struggles. So
And
please
important to
reach
say,
out.
I want to say here too, don't say that to yourself either. Give yourself
Yes.
that consideration, that respect as well, because I feel like we say that to ourselves a lot, like, ah, just get over it, you're being silly, you're being ridiculous. No.
I don't. I have learned that I cannot do that. I will
Mm-hmm.
have an intense emotional reaction right off the bat, like right off the bat when something really upsets me. And I have to sit in that and just wallow in it while it's really, really fresh so that I can process and start to act like a normal human being again. And yes, the pain and grief will still be there of whatever it was that upset me. But if I don't have that initial intense reaction and just stay there and experience it, I just keep on feeling that way, that intensity,
Mhm.
until I do that. So, and people will just be like, "Why are you so upset?" And I'm like, "Do not tell me how to process things. You are not me. This is how. This is my method. This is how I work through things, and it works. I'm sorry if it makes you uncomfortable. You can go elsewhere. You don't have to stick around for this. But this is what works for me.
Mhm.
I have to sit in it, and I have to experience it right then."
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, everybody needs to give themselves and each other that same consideration. So that's awesome. I love Culber, by the way, as like the ship's counselor. Basically, I love it. He's so. I've always thought that like soft spoken voice of his is just so comforting and so soothing, and I like. I would love to have Culber as my mental health professional because that would be incredible. He would be so good.
Yes, yes, he would. Which is why it was so jarring when he came back in season 2 and he didn't know how to process anything. And
Hmm.
it's just so jarring because that's not the Culber that we know. And he
Yeah.
wasn't the Culber that we know. He's a new Culber. So, and guess what helped him? Therapy.
I think about that scene a lot too. That's one that comes back a lot for sure. For those wondering, if you're not sure, it's in at towards the end of season 2 when he talks with Admiral Cornwell, who's also a psychiatrist, or yeah, at the time. So
Yes,
yeah.
she's a therapist.
Hmm.
Yep. And I love how she says love is a choice and we make that choice every single day. And then she says the only way to make a new road is to walk it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, those are
Always
so profound.
great advice. Absolutely. Okay. So we talked a little bit about Saru's return, and I want to say I want to highlight this comment. I've already lost it. There we go, Patrick. Let's make hashtag Saru swagger a thing, because
Yes.
that scene where yeah, Tilly says, are you taller? It's just so nicely awkward where she was like, I don't believe so. Oh, I thought maybe Kelpians got, I don't know. I don't but that was so sweet. You've got like a swagger going on, and that was really nice. I love that scene. And Saru, yeah, he's got this confidence. He's got this, like, he's owning himself a little bit more, if that makes sense. And there's so many great moments with Saru in this. First of all, when he says, Michael, I asked you to be my um, sounding board and my number one, and I'm wanting to return that favor now. And to see that actually play out in the episode, where those quiet moments where he talks to Michael and says, maybe now's the time that, for example, uh, you have to be the partner to book rather than the captain in this moment. And just those little pieces of advice. He's so good at that. And yeah, he owns that character. And I think that's how the character is written, obviously, and the growth that Saru has made. But it's also just like Doug Jones slipping into that character just so effortlessly now. Um, but he was always amazing. But there's just something about the way he carries himself here in season 4 that I'm in awe of that man.
Yes, agreed. And I think that we forget that Michael has not had a lot of romantic relationships in her life. She had
Mm-hmm.
one that was complicated, and
Complicated.
they yeah, and they didn't really get to be, like, in an actual relationship for much of the time that they knew each other.
Hmm.
So, Book is her first real partner, and there are things that she hasn't learned yet, but that's why she has all these people around her too to help her with that, especially Saru. And Saru is probably the only person on the ship that can say things like that to Michael and it won't seem like it's insubordination or um, being catty or being bossy or anything like that, because he also has a very light touch with people.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Uh, okay. I'm looking at my list of like topics, and which one do I want
So
to?
many, so
I know there's
many.
so much going on. I think I want to talk about Adira and Gray right now
Okay.
because these two, they're so lovely and awkward and awesome, and I love them. Awkward, especially Adira, just amazingly awkward. Played perfectly, of course, by Blue Del Barrio. But I just want to say one little side note. I kept talking about Gray's incorporation. And one thing I've been reading about a lot lately is forming businesses and the legalities involved. And now I just have in my head Gray Tal LLC. Like, he's going to incorporate. So I couldn't shake that the whole time. So apologies for that. But
No,
that
I get
that made
that,
me
I get
smile.
that. I work for an LLC, so I can't say that the thought hadn't crossed my mind. The thing that I love about Adira is that I love the awkwardness. I love their awkwardness and
Hmm.
how they're okay with expressing it until they read through them and oh, whoops. So, and even with Gray when they're going, I can't remember the pun that they did, but and then Gray just makes this face, and
Oh
Adira goes,
yeah.
"Okay, no." And it just I connect with that level of awkwardness because that is me on a good day. I'm just I'm just awkward naturally. It's my mutant power. I am awkward up the wazoo, you guys. So I totally identify with Adira in that way because I am
Hmm.
awkward. And I think that we can I think because, now we have had a season with Adira and Gray, and I think that the actors are more comfortable with each other now and know each other better, especially since they've been playing D&D with with our favorite Andorian. Well, it's hard. It's a hard it gets Strand, but with
Ooh,
playing
yeah.
with Noah Averback cats.
Hmm.
And I think that that has solidified their relationship on screen as well. I think that that is translated into their chemistry on screen.
Hmm. And the pun was making waves was
Oh,
the
right, right,
yeah.
right, right. Okay, no.
That was pretty good.
Yes.
That was fun. But yeah, Adira's awkwardness is just such a great, and the fact that they wear their emotions on their sleeves too is that's what I love about this, both like good and bad, not good and bad, but both like in the I don't want to say positive and negative, but like all emotions, when Tilly snaps at them and
Mhm.
Adira's shocked and doesn't know what to do with themselves, and that's that sort of thing. And then later, in just like my biggest grin moment, when Tilly affirms Adira and praises them, and Adira's face is just like unabashedly like so happy. That's
Yes.
so much fun.
To be fair, Tilly was right. She just didn't express it the correct way because
Absolutely,
Adira
yeah.
had not compensated for whatever it was they were supposed to compensate for, and
Hmm.
Tilly says, "We double and triple check our work, you know this." So,
Hmm.
yeah, even
Yeah,
in the middle of a crisis.
yeah, I did appreciate that Tilly does say, she's not just ensigns, like we double and triple check everyone's work. I did appreciate that. um and the kind of realization that there was a better way to express that and stuff,
Yes.
and the flip side of that, giving praise when it was warranted later, was just such a nice thing to see. That was so much fun. um
Yeah.
and yeah, we do need to shout out, of course, the Sung method for bringing Gray back and creating a synth body. That was fun. It's been, the consciousness transfer has been done before with some admiral named Pick Picard, something like that. That was great.
Well, see, that's the thing. Hugh didn't live in that time, none of them did, and so none
Nope.
of them have the understanding of Picard that we do, so it's
Exactly.
it's funny
And
to see it from that point.
sorry.
Oh, no, did I freeze? Am I frozen? Is it me? Or is it Dan?
I think it was both of us.
Oh
Ah.
my gosh! Now we're back. Maybe? Maybe?
Oh my goodness. I keep blinking out now.
Oh no!
Well, this is
Oh
awkward.
no. Okay, well, apparently it was you, but it was weird because my chat wasn't loading, so I thought it
Apparently it
was
was
me too.
me. Oh
No, I think it
goodness.
was me
Okay.
too, because
Am
like
I
I
back?
said, the chat wasn't loading,
Am I
but
back?
you're back. You're so back.
Okay. just just on a very long delay. Okay. Um wow, what was I saying? Oh yes. So the other side of it, of course, is like they have an even less understanding of that history than even people living 800 years later, because they leapfrogged right over that. Like they didn't just, they're not just almost a millennia removed from it. They didn't see it at all. So that's kind of fun. I like that perspective.
Yeah, which means they also don't know really about Kirk or anybody else. Like all the Trek that we grew up with, they skipped
No.
over all of that. They got no idea. It's all ancient history to
Yeah.
them now.
And I like Yeah, absolutely. And I liked the little hint of that we got last season when they kind of quickly had to bring them up to speed on who the Romulans were. It's like, oh, in your time, they were unknown, but they were a long lost offshoot of the Vulcans. And what a quick one sentence explanation of all this history of the Romulans. That, like, yeah, of course the Discovery folks wouldn't know that. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a big delay here.
I think so. Tell
I
me when you hear me.
might I just heard you there.
Okay, that's like 5 or 6 seconds.
Okay. I might step away for just a moment and see if I can do something internet-wise, and I will leave everything in your capable hands for just a few moments, and I'll be right back. I apologize.
Okay, so this is awkward. And you know that that's my mutant power. So how are you guys? How's everybody in the chat? I hope you all had a Thanksgiving that was satisfactory to you as far as those who celebrate Thanksgiving. If you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, I hope you had the day off. I spent it being sick, so that's been fun. And oh, don't tell me to entertain you. Are you not entertained? Oh, you guys haven't seen my sweater. You haven't seen my sweater. So check it out. Got my sweater. Sorry, microphone's in the way. There's my sweater. No, let's not post horrible lies about Dan, but it's a funny thought. Yeah, okay. Yes, Aaron, please do. Give me a word so that I can build a solo scene, improv scene. I do have improv training. Well, okay, so you bring up a good point. Episode dialogue talked about great. I can't bring it up. Still potentially being a host. I'm not sure how open the trill would be. Just expanding to include a human as a host was a big deal for them. I agree with that, but at the same time, the reason that they did go ahead and keep Tal in Adira was because there aren't enough trill for the hosts, and the hosts, if or for the symbionts, excuse me, and if the symbionts don't get into hosts, they die. And the symbionts have generations of memories. So I think at this point, they're not going to be picky at this. They can't. They literally do not have the ability to be picky about it being only Trill that carry the symbionts. Hey, welcome back, Dan.
Hi, thanks. Glad to be back. Um, Apparently I invented the food truck. I'm looking at all the lies that people are posting about me. That's not a horrible lie, though. That's a good lie. Yeah.
Well, that's because somebody suggested we do wonderful lies about you. So
I saw, yeah.
Yeah.
That's very sweet. Thank you. Um, yeah. Uh, Sorry about that. It should be a little better now, I hope. Um,
Oh, yeah, it's very good. We're not on a delay at all.
oh, good. Okay,
Yeah.
excellent. So what were you talking about?
Well, we talked about how the Trill would react to having Gray become a host in a synth
Mm,
body, and that they barely let Adira get away with it. And I was talking about how they have realized through Adira that they can't afford to wait for only Trill to be available as
right.
hosts. They
Yeah.
have to expand, and they know that because otherwise those symbionts are going to die without hosts.
Hmm.
So,
Oh, very cool. Excellent. What do we want to talk about now is the question. This all threw me right off.
well, it was nice to see Gray's body that he's going to get.
Mhm. That was pretty cool. Uh, and I did
And
love, and obviously this isn't something with which I have personal experience and stuff. Just friends and people who've told me that experience and that sort of thing. I kind of loved the talk of transitioning and that sort of
yes,
thing.
I was just going to
Uh,
bring that up, so you beat me to it.
Excellent. Well, by all means, because I don't have a ton to say because it's not my lived experience, but it's
Mine either. Yeah.
right. But it was so great to like see that very directly um alluded to, I guess, if that makes sense. I love that.
I would say it's more than alluded to because people were saying that they're using the excuse of being a Trill who is joined with a symbiont as as a metaphor for trans, but no, this is basically saying no. Gray is trans,
Hmm.
apart from being a Trill.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, and the being able to kind of remake yourself with the using the allegory of the mole on the hand, I thought was interesting as well. And Culber says you're becoming a new person. Why not? This is what we're here for. you
Hmm.
know, that was
For these
great.
last minute changes.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to the actual incorporation or getting a body, as Adira says it. How about getting a body?
Absolutely. Okay, so we talked briefly about it, but Stamets and Book together
Mm,
was something I've been waiting for, and I love this show because it subverts expectations a bit, and I love the direction they went in, where Book is expecting Stamets to be really jealous over the spore drive thing, and Book being able to control it, and Stamets says like, no, not at all. That's not what it was. And going back to what happened at the end of last season, the fact that he wasn't there to save his family, but Book was able to, um, and that whole aspect of it, I love that that's revisited, and we hear from Stamets' perspective on all of that and what that meant to him, and that was beautiful. And yeah, I'm assuming this was another one of those moments for you because it darn
mhm.
near was for me too.
Yeah, it was.
No, I figured. Um, yeah, I don't know what more to say about that. If you have anything to add about uh, their relationship here and how they played off each other.
I really like how Stamets went into it. He's like, look, I know we're not friends.
Hmm.
And he's just very honest, which is not something that Stamets is super good at, not because he's dishonest, but because he doesn't always tell people his real thoughts and feelings. He's gotten better at that over the seasons. I mean, think about Stamets in season 1. This would never
Hmm.
have happened with season 1 Stamets. So, seeing how he has grown in that way, and especially having a family, how that has changed him, made him more aware of what he says and does, and how that's now an example to his kids, basically. Um, he's he's quite different than the Stamets we originally met. No less intelligent, no less
Hmm.
driven. no less good at his job, but he has an understanding now
Yeah.
of what it means to be part of a family, to truly be part of a family, outside of just, his partner. So, not just with the kids, but with all of the crew of Discovery.
Yeah,
So,
for
I like
sure.
that he just goes into this being very honest and says, "Look, that we're not friends, and we haven't spent a lot of time together." And, Book thinks he knows why. Book thinks he knows everything right now, which
Yeah.
is something that happens to people going through grief.
Mhm.
They think they know better than everyone else about how they should, how they're doing, how they're processing, etc. And in some ways that is true, and in some ways it's not. They just get very leave me alone sort of thing. I know
Mhm.
how to fly this ship better than anyone, which was true. And yeah, but this experience teaches Book that he was not ready to fly this mission, even though he was the logical choice because
Mhm.
he knows the ship better than anyone. I do disagree with him saying that Detmer couldn't fly a ship. Excuse me, she totally did in season 3 with an Andorian and a cat bothering her. So, pretty sure she could handle your ship, but whatever. So,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah. Um, Stamets, we gotta shout out this line.
Oh, yes, I know. I was gonna bring that up too because it's just so funny. And
Oh,
the thing, he's the one that's joking about it.
mhm.
He's the one that's joking about it, not Michael, and so the fact that he was the one who said the joke, I'm like, "Well, he's okay. He's actually
Yeah.
okay.
And I
Alright
kind
then."
of liked that as almost an indication to Burnham. Like, I feel like they've talked about it already since then, or at least I hope they have, like, off
Oh,
screen at some
absolutely.
point. But
I'm sure.
I also feel like this was like a heads up to Burnham, like, we're good. Like, don't worry about I love that. Where she's like, "What?" He's like,
Yeah, the look on her face is like, "Oh." Like, "You just reminded me of that thing I did."
which, Stamets will continue to do for years to come, I'm sure.
I'm
Because
sure.
he's still got that prickly Stamets to him, right? He's gonna do that thing where he'll snipe at you just a little bit, but it's from a better place now.
It
It would
comes
seem
from
so.
love. It
Yeah,
comes from knowing who he can tease and who he can't.
exactly. Yeah. Um, yeah, I really love that line. So, and by the comments, it seems like most people loved that line. So that was good. One thing we haven't talked a lot about is the titular anomaly, the actual threat to the galaxy. This what they think of as two black holes that are converging, but maybe they're not acting quite like you would expect them to, and apparently it can change direction and seems to I'm just going to put this in big broad quotes here, have a mind of its own, or maybe be under the control of something or something like that. um yeah, I've said this before about Discovery, and one of the things when the trailer came out was a lot of people are saying, "Oh, another big, huge thing that's going to threaten everything." And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what Discovery does. But at the same time, that's not what the story is. Like, Discovery, more than any other Star Trek show to my mind, is the story of the people and the relationships and how they cope with things, and especially this season, obviously coping with grief and trauma and loss. And the big bad, the big thing is kind of background to that. Like, that's the setup for the characters to deal with whatever they're dealing with. That said, this is going to be the thing that is propelling the plot forward this season. So, what are your thoughts on this star system swallowing gravitational anomaly we see here?
I personally, and I thought this before the big I thing, okay? I personally, especially when Tilly said that it shouldn't have been able to do what it did, uh, due to what she knew about astrophysics. It doesn't make any sense. So to me, that initially signals to me there's some kind of intelligence going on. I can't say what. I don't know what. Even after watching other episodes, I can't say anything about what it is, why it
Mhm.
is. Um, but I feel like this is not just some random thing. There is some sort of intelligence or knowledge behind it.
Mhm.
So, the fact that it changed when it was interacted with, that signals intelligence, that signals life of some kind to me.
Mhm. Yeah, I am curious if, and my brain goes to like all of the Star Trek tropes a little bit, right? Like,
Mhm.
um, maybe it's something malicious and it's an attack, but maybe it's a misunderstanding of some kind. Maybe it's a complete, otherworldly, other like thing that's completely alien to us that doesn't realize that it's having this impact on our universe. My brain even went to like the micro universe that they get snagged on the Runabout's warp engine in season 2 of Deep Space Nine, and like there could be a
Mhm.
whole civilization in there, and they're like, we can't just destroy it, and maybe we're that micro universe to something else out there that is affecting us that we have no idea. I don't know. I love that kind of, that would say typical Star Trek story to me, or this could be in a completely different direction that I have no idea. I don't know. Wellington Smith, thank you so much, by the way. I like this observation. I think that if this anomaly had happened in TNG, that it would have been only as a cleanup story, but with the new tech, they can help. So I think what you're saying here is like, in seasons past or in series past, this would be like just an environmental disaster that we have to clean up afterwards. But now, because it's in the 32nd century, the technology is more able to maybe do something about it or cope with it. And that's an interesting observation. I like that. How this would have been done in like season 5 of TNG or something like that. Yeah, just like a,
Yeah.
yeah, disaster
I
relief story kind of thing.
yeah. I feel like, it is life, but such that we don't recognize with our piddly little human brains of the 21st century, because there are other forms of life out there besides humanoid, besides what we've seen through Star Trek. There are other possibilities of forms of life. I did have one moment where I turned to Dave and I said, "It's V'ger. V'ger's back."
Yeah, I've
I
seen
don't
that.
think it's V'ger. I don't, but it made me laugh.
Mhm.
So I really do think that there is some sort of life, some sort of intelligence going on behind this. That's my personal feeling, and I'm sticking with it for now until I am proven otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, that seems to be the implication, or maybe not even implication, but where they're kind of trying to push us towards. Um, that could be an expectation that gets subverted again later, though. Like, I don't know, but I'm
Yeah,
having
well,
an
see, that's
open
the
mind
thing.
about this because I'm kind of like, I'm on board for the journey. I want to see what they've come up with, and I see, and we brought this up in the podcast that'll be released on Tuesday as well. Dr. Aaron McDonald's name has been bandied about quite a bit as the science advisor, of course, on Discovery, with a background in astrophysics. And yeah, her fingerprints are all over this. That's really cool. I think she'd be a fun one to talk to after the season is complete to kind of debrief a little bit about this whole thing. So that would be a lot of fun, I think.
Yes, I agree. No matter what it is, it's going to mirror what's happening with the characters.
Hmm.
So, because that's generally what they do, whatever this big overarching thing is, it's usually a mirror to what's going on with our crew and what's going on with the Starfleet slash Federation in general. So just keep that in mind because that could make for some very interesting things. This season so far, I mean, just after these 2 episodes, they're just knocking it out of the park for me. They get better every year. I don't know how that's possible because it's
Mhm.
like, oh, this is
Mhm.
the best season. Oh, wait, this is the best season. Oh, wait, this is the best season. So it just, this is why it's my favorite Trek, you guys. It just keeps bringing these things that are just so prescient in an odd way, because a lot of times they couldn't have had prior knowledge of what we're going through right now, especially with how long it takes just to
Mhm.
get one episode done. Because from start to finish, from the time you start
Yeah.
pre-production to the time you've got the effects in there and the music and everything, it's like 9 months for one episode. So,
Mhm.
oh
Yeah.
no, did Dan freeze
I
again?
do have to say with this season of Discovery. Oh, did I? I hope not.
I think you
Everything
did.
looks okay from my end. Oh, shoot.
Your little
Okay. Sorry. Okay.
go
I
on.
can't remember what I was gonna say anyway. Uh, oh, yeah, yeah, okay. So, I think with everything that's kind of, been going on in the world while this season was being made, obviously, is on the minds of the people making the show. I mean, they're shooting this season while having to deal with the COVID protocols and all of that stuff. And it really struck me, especially during the meeting at Starfleet headquarters, um, about Federation and non-Federation having to come together to face this threat that threatens all of us. We're not, there's not people who are exempt just because they're not part of the Federation, or all this kind of stuff. They all have to work at it together. And yeah, the global pandemic is echoing through my head throughout all of that. So, like, it had an influence absolutely uh the on the creation of this show for sure. So, um as always, art imitating life, and hopefully giving us a better perspective on some of the things that we're dealing with. And you know Star Trek's at its best when it does things like that, for sure.
Yes, what freaks me out though is that they didn't have any knowledge of the isolation that we were going to face when they made season 3. They had
Absolutely.
finished filming in January of 2020. That was before any lockdowns started, before we knew really how bad it was. And so
Yeah.
for it to echo so closely, eerily so, our existence during that time period was just
Hmm.
odd and weird and amazing. So,
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Well, that's about all I had to say about this episode, which I really loved. I thought it was amazing. So Brandi, I guess anything we haven't touched on, any final thoughts that you want to share, and this goes for folks in the chat as well. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share with us, and ratings, of course, for Anomaly.
I miss Tilly's natural hair. What are they doing with her hair? What are they doing with her hair? In the space of one episode, her hair was three different times. It's just like, just let her have her hair. Okay? Just let her have, like, the hair when she's talking to Culber, that was when it was that natural curl. But all the other times it was like this curling iron curl, and I hated it.
Hmm.
It was not Tilly. It didn't look good. I didn't like it. And so I'm just like, no, let her have that hair when she is with Culber. Let it just be her natural curl. It's beautiful, like it is. Just do that, please. Stop messing with her hair. Don't get it. That's all I have to say about that. So, I love this episode. Obviously, it's amazing on so many levels. So much happens, and yet there are still those quiet moments, and there's still development between characters. And oh yeah, yay for Bryce knowing about
Yeah,
kite surfing.
yeah,
Good
that was a
job,
fun
buddy.
moment. I love that.
Yeah, good job, buddy, for breaking it down into Federation standard. That's the new in English, please.
Mhm.
And we have President Rillick to thank for that from episode 1. So I would give this, I'm going to give this 10 out of 5 anomalies that look like an eye or the front of a humpback whale, depending on how you look at it.
Nice. Yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed this episode as well. There's so much packed into here, so much that spoke to me, and I'm assuming a lot of people out there, as far as what we're going through now and what we have been going through, and the importance of reaching out and making connections, which really, if you were to come up with a theme for discovery as a whole, I think that would be a pretty good one. And just continuing that in season four, in a more focused way, I think is really interesting. And um, even the plot elements, which to me, like I said, are kind of secondary to everything else, they're enough that I'm engaged and I'm curious and I want to know more, which that's a good sign, you know. Uh, but to me, of course, the heart and soul is the characters, and I'm just waiting to find out how all these people I care about come out the other end. Hopefully, okay. Hopefully, better. I hope. So yeah, I have to give it, I think, like probably a 4.9 scenes with Burnham going like this with the gravitational wave thing, out of 5. So yeah, very good episode. Really excited for more discovery in season 4. Uh, and we've got Aaron coming in here with a late rating as well. 9 out of 10 for our crew members, but 4 out of 10 for yet another anomaly. Fair enough. Fair enough. So
They're in
the
space. They're exploring. They're seeing things they've never seen before. Of course, there's going to be anomalies. It's Star Trek. It's what
yeah,
they do. They come into contact with anomalies. Show me
well,
one series that hasn't had anomalies in multiple seasons. You can't.
well, not every plot point has to connect with everyone,
I know. I know.
but I
I know.
absolutely agree with the 9 out of 10 for our crew members. Absolutely agree with that for
Absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely. And to each their own. Nobody has to like the same things that everybody else likes. It's all good.
Absolutely. Speaking of talking to you about the things that you like, where can people do that online with you?
Um, Nowhere. I'm very antisocial. Actually, I'm not antisocial. It's just interaction with people outside of me and Dave is draining because that's what it's like to be
Mhm.
an introvert. But you can find me on Twitter at Brandywine12. Brandy's with an I and 12 is a number. And that's where you can find out about my other podcasts. I'm not going to go into them all because I'm just exhausted.
I really want you to like have a website and the title is something like uh I don't know, 12 is a number.com or something like that. I love that. Like every Randy is with an I, 12 is a number.
Well,
I
instead
love
of
that.
spelling out 12, that's what I'm trying to
Oh no, no, I
explain.
know. But I something about that phrase is like connected with me now. I love that.
Okay. Well, now I'm going to have to do that.
You don't
All
actually
right.
have.
All right, Squarespace, here I come.
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Kertrats. That's KERTRATS. That's just Star Trek backwards. And of course, on the Positively Trek podcast with Bruce Gibson, doing weekly episodes about news from the Star Trek universe and whatever episode has aired that week, plus book club episodes every 2 weeks. And yeah, right in the middle of the Coda trilogy, those of you who are reading those novels, I'm so sorry for all of the trauma that is causing. Whew, boy, that story. Man, loving it though. But yeah, so find us there. And of course, here every week. Next week, and I haven't even talked to you, Brandi, about this yet, we might be back in the evening next week now because things keep changing. So overseas listeners who've been able to join us because we're around this time, I'm so sorry to have to keep moving it. And but hopefully, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's everything. So we'll see you again next week, whatever time that is. And have a great week until then. And what do we want to say? Live long and prosper. Stay positive. I don't know.
All of those
Thanks so
things.
much. Absolutely. And see you next time.